Okay, we are back. Play it forward. We've got Laura Beckner. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are.
Laura Beckner, your film Rebound. How would you say it more sophisticated French?
Le Rebound.
Le Rebound. Well, lay is certainly appropriate. If you were to describe, first of all, it is an awesome film. It's a great, great film. It's a great comedy, right? Am I accurate in saying it's comedy?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a great comedy. It's, wow, how many production days?
We shot it in 5 days in France and 1 day in LA.
It's great. Wow, ambitious. I mean, definitely makes sense. You guys had a good shooting schedule. So before we dive in, I just want to say your film is really awesome. It hits, the directing, the acting. You're Claudia, right? You wrote this, correct? It's superbly written.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you, I'm a harsh critic.
Yeah, well, that means a lot.
I am a harsh critic. I write as well and consider myself a writer. That's my first kind of love and passion, how I came to this world of filmmaking and then social media and etc. So yeah, I'm a harsh critic. Very well written, really well directed. Great. Wow, you acted too. I mean, very impressive. And I don't like dish out the compliments. That's not my style. So yeah, I was impressed. Really enjoyed the movie. Again, you wrote, directed, acted, Rebound. How would you finish this? It's a comedy about.
Okay. It's a comedy about. Oh God, one word? I'm terrible at the one word.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, keep going. It's not one word.
Yeah, it's a comedy about like the illusion of freedom.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's an illusion. Like people are like, oh man, like a threesome's so hot. Oh man, like France, like we create these kind of unattainable and like these really high bar, like awesome dream bucket list, I think. And I think in the movie, I wanted to tell a story where technically you're like, well, I'm in France, like I'm having that threesome, I'm with this dude, I'm doing things that like sound awesome, but you feel terrible when you're living it and it's not feeling awesome. And this to me is comedy. When everyone else objectively is like, please, you are having the most amazing life experience and you're like, but I'm miserable in my own dream scenario.
That's super profound. I love it. The first question is, what was your creative inspiration that resonated with this theme as an artist?
Well, I'm late to the game. I'm in my 30s. I'm a woman. I'd never directed anything before. So I knew that whatever I made had to be uniquely my voice and I couldn't fuck it up.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question, because that's like, I don't care about like how this could be a benefit. Everybody like is out there. All right, let me make a short film, try to shop around, and I'll start making money every day.
No, that's hideous. Okay, you wanted the more romantic answer.
No, just the more honest one. I mean, what is, you could have made a million subjects on a million comedies, but you made it about, what you called as freedom. And what I'm seeing here, I mean, there's sex and intimacy, right? That's the big parallel. I mean, somebody wants intimacy and all she's getting is sex. And then how that resonates with really what we as Americans think. There's love, there's pleasure, there's love. So there's a lot of stuff there. So what inspired you? What was clicking with you in your life to say, oh yeah, let me make comedy about this?
I think at that time I left LA when I had a very serious breakup, like in the movie, and I didn't know. And when I broke up with this person who really was a great love, maybe my first, I what I missed was not being in a relationship, but that I felt that there was less beauty in my world. Like I felt like we made things more beautiful, and that I was inspired so consistently by him, and I think that this film came from my desire to create beauty, and that shifted, and and I realized that it was kind of evolving. And this occurred to me, this story, which is based on a real story that happened to me, although years earlier, merged with, like I said, visually something beautiful, something funny, and something that I felt like wasn't being discussed, or I wasn't.
I mean, wow. I mean, that's just beautiful. So you're saying here you are, potentially the first love of your life, and that broke, or that ended, or whatever you want to call it. Now here you are creating that same sense of beauty in your life.
Yeah.
From within, right? From within. That's the critical part.
Yes. From within. And it was hard because I think we get sidetracked sometimes. There are so many ways that we create, like in our daily lives, whether it's decorating or planning a wedding and so I felt like I was doing all of this, sort of creating, but it all felt kind of diffused and like just like scattering out into and I was like, wait a minute, like if you could just harness all this vision, all this style, all this taste, all this desire for beauty, for this story, and put it in a film, which at the time when I first started writing it, I didn't know it was a film. I thought someone else would direct it. I didn't know it would be possible to get a chateau. I mean, all these things felt so grand and sort of impossible, but it's like, if you build it, they will come. So I just started writing it and sending it around and talking to people and I mean, I sent this thing to the script to probably everyone I knew. Some people got back to me. Some people said, seems kind of weird. I don't know. Some people said, you're making a sex movie. No, it was mixed bag. And then when I went to Germany, I met Carolina, who plays Katya. She found us an investor in Germany. And then it got real. Because all of a sudden, this dream, I mean, then someone said, I believe in this so much that I think I will give you money to make it. I think I would believe in you. And then that was really what took it from, it was building, and then boom. And then 6 months later, we shot it.
So you wrote it, and then how many moons later did you shoot it?
I mean, I wrote it, and then I think it kind of sat around for maybe like a 6 months. I met this Carol, and we had a fun night where we just read it out loud. Because I said, and then I was like, where am I going to find like a really European like beauty? I didn't know. I was like, and then I met one, and I said, I think I have this part that I wrote that you might be good for. She read it. I was like, oh, she's perfect. And then
actor.
and then we just kind of started putting the gears into motion.
That's really cool. I just asked if she's an actor.
Yes, she is. She's an actress, and now she's producing all over the place out of Berlin. She's based in Berlin.
Wow.
Half Brazilian, so she's got this crazy, gorgeous, all these countries, all these ethnic influences going on in her spirit, which I love.
Well, it was meant to be, that connection.
Yeah, it really was. Everything about it was like a family, and I'm so proud of working with every single person. It was an absolute joy, the entire process. And I know it's optimistic to say, but I would like to think that every project from here on out, especially if I'm like still scrapping around on like this super indie level, I think that in a way, then you can end up with some of the best families, because it's not like sexy money is involved. You're basically coming to someone and saying, you're the person I want. I have this much money, but I think we can make something beautiful, and it's going to elevate you, and it's going to elevate both of us, this project. And then how do you say to that? You either say, sorry, I need my X amount of dollars, or you say, I'm in. And you can't be, I'm not offended if you need the X amount of dollars, but.
Of course.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, the second question is, in retrospect, looking back on this movie, what do you think it's saying?
I think it's saying something that feels, that I hear echoed in a lot of places writing films otherwise, specifically by people of our generation, which is this, the film says that there is great beauty and great growth in aloneness as well as coupledom.
Mm.
And I think that there is pleasure in both.
Mm. Cool. So each is an experience unto its own. And
yeah. And I think it's like your life, at least my life, has had periods of with another and periods of solo time. And in like looking back, there isn't necessarily a hierarchy.
Cool. One of the things, you know, that stood out to me most with what this film was playing with is sex and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think, you know, I was born in Russia, Kiev, Ukraine, actually. At the time, it was Russia. And, you know, I was pretty much brought up in the United States. And I think there's a lot of confusion around sex in America. And there's more freedom around it in Europe. And I once asked, I was off in school in England, and I met an Italian friend, and you know, I was like, what do you think sex is? Like, what do you think, how do you define it? And he said, well, it's just adult play. And so I thought at the time, and still do, I reflect on that definition, and I think, you know, on one hand, there's a real freedom to that idea. Well, it's nothing more complicated than that. And then on the other, this idea of sex and intimacy, and in America, it's it seems like there's, you know, for men and maybe for women too, there's this idea of going out and having many conquests, and that this idea of the that conquest of that experience is satisfying, and then you do it, and at some point you often realize how empty that experience can be unless that experience is approached on kind of a level playing field, so the partner that you have is on the same page with you. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the most important thing with sex and intimacy is being on the same page with the person that you're with and having the purity of intent. And that intent seems so mismatched in the movie. And I just wonder what you think of all that.
I hear what you're saying. And I think we're lucky because we're in a time in history, or, you know, just a couple decades really, where we have the luxury of, and I include sex in this, we have the luxury of like saying, I deserve to have a good life. I don't think people, you know, like I think in 1912, when you had to go out and farm or provide for your family, I don't know that this very contemporary or very modern idea of us deserving happiness, that's something that I think is relatively new. And I think that it's put a lot of pressure on sex and intimacy because I think we have expectations that are perhaps unfairly stacked, whether those expectations are, I need to experiment and like, you know, try everything out there and reach the heights while I'm still young or forever or whatever, or whether the expectations are, I want to bond with my one and only soulmate. But I feel those expectations very heavily when I meet people that I'm attracted to, and when that's sort of the beginnings of an attraction. And it's weird. It's weird because even and I think it's weird matched with this other thing that's going on, where right now I think we are living in a time of like YOLO, fear of missing out on shit. Like people are all about like experiences, like the commodification of experiences. So people are doing things because they can say that they did it. You know, I think there's a lot of that going on, whether it's like I hiked Machu Picchu, you know, I like started a brewery in my basement, I'm going to blog about it, I'm going to tell you about it, I'm going to Instagram it to prove that this thing, you know, there's like this really kind of showing off of like how much we can do with our young lives and with our ideas, with our entrepreneurism, and with our social media. And that has a weird effect on intimacy, because it's, in my mind, sort of accruing awesome experiences is not necessarily involved in sex and intimacy, but it is, because then you find yourself with a partner, you say, well, this guy's really interesting. He's really, okay, maybe I'm not like in love with him, but this could be a cool experience. Like, I'll try anything once. And I think that was what got Claudia into that situation. This idea of like, when else am I going to have a chance to go to a chateau and just like hang out with artists and like do this? This may be my window. My window may be closing. I might be pregnant with 2 kids. I may never see the light of the French field morning ever again. And so people are like rapidly accumulating stuff without necessarily feeling like I can say no. At least that's what I feel sometimes.
Well, you know, I think before I say this, how did the film end? Remind me again, the last shot. What's going on with Claudia?
Oh, she ends up giving into the French.
Oh,
vibe,
yes.
and enjoying it. She
Right,
goes for
right.
it. She initiates it. Yeah.
Right. Cool. So the last question, since the movie, how have you changed as a person?
That's it. Yeah.
I was thinking a little more to that. It could be on and off the set is usually the way I ask the question.
Like I said, I had an amazing time making this, and there was not a single moment on that set when I felt like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, which is very interesting since I'd never done it before. And I think I remember laying on a bed somewhere in Germany after we'd done shooting, and I was kind of in that post, where like suddenly everything's done and you don't know how to come down yet because you're still in that mode of production. And I was just lying there and I looked at this stack of hard drives. I hadn't seen anything. And I felt so proud and so calm and so happy that I knew like I had done something good, even though I had no proof. I know we hadn't gotten into festivals. No one had given it the thumbs up at all. And even then I was like feeling, no, something's really right. And it really just broke me open. I gave up a lot of things. This sounds silly, but as a woman, I really stopped worrying about prettiness because I just didn't have time. I was producing, I was directing, I was in a foreign country. I was like fixing my French constantly. I let go of a lot of like just kind of unnecessary pieces, and they have not come back. And so now it's just this super lean person that wants to just continue to make more movies. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, maybe you let go of doesn't sound silly at all as you prefaced it, maybe you let go of the mindfulness or attention or focus on being pretty because you value yourself for other things.
Yeah, and I cared so much. I think so many people work for free and did me huge favors in contributing their time. Everyone from like French scholars to my best friend in Paris who let us sleep in his apartment to, my DP, everyone was just giving. And so I was like, I have to make sure that every single one of these people feels that this was worth their time. So in a way, it was a very like lotus flower, like Mother Earth kind of vibe where I felt like I just had to make sure that everyone was taken care of and elevated. And I think that that's what happened. And so I hope that I can have that much power the next time.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what would you, this was going beyond the questions, but as having this directing experience to young directors, older directors, whatever it might be, what would be your top suggestion to them? Or did you just say it?
No, my suggestion is get it made. Get it made whatever way you can. Ask people for money, wrangle a camera, ask people for favors. Once you start asking, it comes. But for me, it's really hard to ask for help. And you have to just kind of make your peace with asking for stuff. That's my number one. And then the part number two is don't compromise your vision, which seems difficult when you're trying to do it on a limited budget. But for example, I thought maybe I'll make it in Canada and try to like make it in Montreal. My Canadian friend was like, this is France. Don't, and that's the way you imagined it. Don't start to clip it.
Mm.
So for me, and especially when it's your first film or a short film, it's such artistic freedom because it's like your little confection. It's your little calling card. Let them jerk you around when you're making your Marvel movie. You know what I mean? But as far as your first short or music video, something really artistically open, like don't compromise what your weird or great or big idea is and ask for favors because they'll come.
Awesome. That's great advice. Laura Beckner.
When do I get to tell you my filmmaker to push it forward, or is that a private?
Oh yeah, you'll send me a list. I'll email you, and we'll do it over email.
Okay.
But it is a good. I'm glad you mentioned it because I do want to give props to Matt Wyatt Stuff who nominated you, Laura, and thank you so much. You're super sweet. Thanks for being on. Great film.
So much.
And I look forward to more stuff. And I'll keep you posted on this stuff.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thanks, Laura. All right.
Signing off. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and leave us a like and or a comment. It makes a big difference. Play It Forward is brought to you by Digipops, where we're building a community to put film and filmmaker discovery in your hands. Here, filmmakers and fans, the creative class, recognizes each other fairly and transparently through a community-curated film festival each quarter. It's coming soon. Thank you.